Hello, my brothers, my sisters, lovers, haters, friends and neighbours, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls and vibrations in the mind of the one true God. What a day to be alive, my brothers, my sisters. Now, I'm drawn to make this video today, motivated, shall I say, by an incident that happened in Carlisle yesterday. Now, this particular subject matter has gone rather quiet across the board, you know, for good reason, by design, of course. But, you know, as men, you know, a lot of things do take priority in our lives, don't they? You know, as men and as the head of a family, as a lot of men are, you know, so many things take priority. You know, there's so many occurrences, there's circumstances and situations what demand your full attention. You know, you've got a job to get to, you've got to put food on the table, you've got bills to pay, you've got to offer your time, your financial and emotional support to your loved ones and your children, you know, and only we as fathers and, you know, can do that. You know, it's not anybody else's job, so we're like the only individuals that can deal with, you know, so many things in our own lives. So that always takes priority over so many things. It's only real life and death situations what often take priority over, you know, your own family, protecting and providing. And then, of course, by design, you've got you know, if you do pipe up, if you say the wrong thing, or if you go a bit far with your wording, or you say something online that is seen as, you know, not acceptable these days, you know, you can be jailed, you can be arrested, you can be charged. You know, like look at what happened in Southport, where, you know, children died, you know, and Keir Starmer lied. Now, that's just a fact. Like, all the far right people were all labelled, and the police were out in the massive you know, arresting and beating people. Even the innocent protesters exercising their right to peaceful protest were arrested, they were charged, they were beaten, some of them were thrown in jail. People were jailed for various tweets and Facebook posts, you know, and they just had this big blanket thrown over everyone, and everybody was far right, and anybody who even spoke up was far right. So that certainly quietened a lot of people down, didn't it? By design, of course. But I'm drawn and, shall I say, motivated is a better word, to make this video today on regard of something that happened in Carlisle yesterday, you know, the town that I know and love. There was one of these types. I don't know what its background, where it come from. I don't know. I'm not even bothered, you know, to be fair. You know, the why is a much more of a question than the what. But you know the type, you know, one of these, a very dark individual from some African country, you know, I don't know where or how, but, you know, people around here would call him, he was a blick individual, you know, a very dark individual indeed, you know, and you know the type, a non-English speaking, knife-wielding, feral, animalistic tribesman. You know, it's probably the best way to describe this individual. Like, and the blended these types, you know, you throw a pair of flip-flops, some shorts and a polo t-shirt on these types, and they would appear house-trained, you know, but they're anything but. Now, this thing, whatever it was, thought it would be a good idea to, you know, start wielding a knife around children and pensioners in a council estate, just a neighbouring council estate. You know, and for whatever reason, this thing is here, you know. Why, we don't know its purpose. You know, we certainly know that these particular types, you know, they don't provide anything, they don't contribute, you know, and that they are the main thing that they leave here, you know, is misery and regret, unfortunately. You know, they're not here to serve the British people in any way, shape or form. Now, the place where I live, Carlisle, the town I've always known and loved, born and raised here, you know, it's always been a predominantly white town, and that's how I've known and loved it. You know, now, I'm allowed to say that without having any racial implications whatsoever. You know, I prefer my town the way it always was, predominantly white, you know, and I've got so much love and so much respect for so many people in my life that come from different ethnicities and backgrounds and cultures and etc, you know. But, you know, I categorically say, you know, that the Carlisle that I know and love, you know, is predominantly white, because that's what I'm familiar with. It's what I've always been around, you know, and am I allowed to say that I do not want, like, or appreciate these wild African, non-English speaking, knife wielding, feral, animalistic tribesman types? I don't want them in the town that I know and love. And I don't want them roaming the streets alongside the children who I've done everything to protect. You know, it doesn't sit well with me at all. Now, multiculturalism is obviously this new thing that's been swept everywhere. It's something you just have to accept, apparently. Well, I'm not big on it. You know, I'm not big on it at all. As I've said, you can apply any racial implication to that you so desire, but anything that needs constant, you know, oblivious and subliminal, you know, propaganda channeled towards it, you know, can't really be something that's being accepted, you know, on a normal level, you know, because it's just not working, is it? You know, it's simply not working. Now, like I say, everybody's gone a bit quiet on this particular subject matter, but, you know, it's definitely time to start raising it again conversationally, you know, and obviously you do have to be careful with what you say, but like the top, the middle, the bottom is, you know, I don't like it, I don't want it, you know, and I'm not going to sit by silently why these types, whatever they are, you know, I don't know what they are, I don't know where they're from, I'm not interested, you know, but the why seems much more important. Like, why are they here? What are they doing here? Where are they going? How long have they been here? How long will they be here? You know, can I have every one of them out immediately, please? Now, I'm not politically aware, you know, I don't have you know, an in-depth awareness of a political historical landscape. I just don't know, but surely there hasn't been, you know, a real time in history that's been replicated with, you know, the modern day, where, you know, an entire nation is being damaged and betrayed by the very people that are supposed to be leading it and protecting it. Like, it's bizarre time, isn't it? You know, but that's all I wanted to say, really. You know, I think I've said everything and touched most bases without sounding like a bigot, but only time will tell. You know, that's where I stand on the affair. They're my opinions and my views. You know, don't want them here, not happy with these types roaming the streets, and yeah, maybe it's time collectively as a nation we started exercising our rights to a peaceful protest, you know, and maybe seeing where that goes, because they're sitting in silence and they're doing nothing, and they're not rallying together, and they're not speaking up, you know, isn't helping us at all, you know, and they're sitting back in silence and just watching it happen isn't really something I'm prepared to endure any longer. But, you know, time will tell, brothers and sisters. Have a beautiful day. I've got sparring in an hour. I'm tired. I'm not exactly looking forward to it, but needs must. God bless everybody. Bye-bye for now.